Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the Power of Our Story. I'm Ron Stark. I've been affectionately nicknamed Papa Ron by those in the group. I work for Turn Behavioral Health Services in North End and Substance Use Prevention in San Diego County. I'm the president of San Diego Veterans Coalition, and this is a Power of Our Story more about mission than it is about anything else, and aligning our mission to our faith and serving others. And so we have several people here. I'm going to call out. I'm going to start with Sarah, who is the facilitator of Power Story. Would you introduce yourself briefly, Sarah?
Sure. My name is Sarah Carell, and founder of the Power of Our Story. I feel incredibly honored to be able to create these platforms with such wonderful people to give our protectors a voice. It's a true honor. I'm also a mother of 4 boys and a wife of 32 years, which is very important to me. So I want to share that too. Thanks, Ron.
You reminded me, I'm a submarine sonar technician, Navy veteran, family of 5, got some bunch of grandkids and all over the country, 2 Marine son-in-laws, an active duty Navy corpsman, and a retired Navy master at arms. So it is a family deal for us. And this is about veterans and first responders, those of us who put our safety subordinate to the safety of others at times, and live for others as our military and first responder service, and in the communities beyond that. So also with us, a regular with us is Baya. Baya, would you introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. Hi. How you doing, Papa Ron?
Well,
so my name is Baya Mebarek. I'm a psychologist, a licensed marriage and family therapist here in San Diego, California. I worked for a while at MCRD San Diego, and also at Camp Pendleton when they had this rush of people coming from the war. So I have some experience also in private practice, because now I'm in private practice, and I've been taking for many years TRICARE. So I've been working with a lot of military, and I kind of understand that it's a very unique culture and very different than the main culture that we find in the city. It's definitely a different culture. And I'm glad to be here. And also I'm a Christian, and I like bringing hope around me.
That's awesome.
okay, thank you, Baya. And then we'll go to Aaron. A bit about yourself, Aaron.
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you for having me on. It's an honor. My name is Aaron Terrell, and I am a medically retired police officer of 18 years, 10 years on a tactical team. I sustained a traumatic brain injury at work. I have 3 beautiful children whom I worship. I worship the ground they walk on. And Sarah is one of my angels who has saved my life and has brought me into this family. So I'm just proud to be here.
Okay, thank you for that. And before we go to our guest, Hiram, I just want to let you know that I respect you each for your service to the community and to each other, and really to the household of Christ. And I've had a lot of meditation over this last few months about the Lord's Prayer and how that fits in. And it is really directed, putting Christ first in everything we do. Let him take care of what he takes care of, and we just obey. Baya mentioned that we had that last week, was obedience was a topic, and the moods will follow after that, and all the feelings seem to follow. So our guest today is Hiram Figueroa. Hiram, if you'll give a moment to introduce yourself, and then we'll start from there, and tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, Papa, nice to meet you, and Sarah, Aaron, and Baya. I respect your time. My name is Hiram Figueroa. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I was with the Marine Corps for 14 years, seen quite a few campaigns. especially at the tail end of the Persian Gulf. There's shield, things of that nature. Also, that had a tough transition getting out of the Marine Corps because we didn't have that kind of transition as we have now for supporting veterans. Worked in the private sector for UPS for 25 years, and during that 25 years, I was a reserve LA County Sheriff Deputy for 8 years. So with that being said, that's been pretty much, I have a deep love and respect and advocacy for law enforcement because I've been part of that. The last part is during this time, I've been with LinkedIn for about 20 years, and currently I'm an advocate for veterans and veterans' rights. I fight for their rights for as much as possible. Advocate for PTSD and the SGB treatment as well, because I believe I just recently had it. We can dive into it more, but from the psychological warfare of going through transition, as Baya was stated, there's a unique kind of concept that we all need to interact, especially from first responders to military, and especially people like myself, just like Aaron, who I have a TBI injury as well. So I can really relate. And with the last part of PTSD, as I stated to Sarah, there's a different form, and I think Baya can confirm. I have what you call CPTSD, which is chronic PTSD, which is comes from childhood, and childhood trauma that's been able to manifest. And once you don't have the resources or the vehicles to identify it or accept it, then you have problematic situations as you go in life. So thank you very much. You're muted, sir.
I am. Thank you for that introduction, Hiram. I really appreciate you giving us a little bit of a get to know each other before we go in deeply. I think sometimes in circles, we go in deeply before we even know who we're swimming with. And I think it's very important that we do that. You mentioned the Persian Gulf. I'm a Desert Storm, Desert Shield veteran. I served during the Cold War off the coast of the Soviet Union. And our youngest son, our middle daughter's husband, Marine Corps veteran, he was a manager for UPS, went to 2 trips to Iraq, got injured on the second trip, came back. They took him back to work. He worked for them for quite a few years, and then got scalped for Wayfair. And so they moved to Texas. So one of the things that is so important is how we belong together. I mean, that's that center rung of how we go together. Who knows who's who in the zoo and where we fit in the zoo. And so I appreciate you talking a bit about that. So this is mission and faith alignment, power of our story. So tell us a bit about your story. Tell us your story and how your mission then and now align with your faith.
So, my story begins back in Brooklyn, New York. I was born and raised into the Catholic religion. So pretty much, hey, you're a Catholic, you're gonna know this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna know that. So back in the 60s, that was pretty much forced upon you for that type of religion. So being raised in a dysfunctional family where there was a, verbal abuse, all types of mental, verbal, physical abuse, dysfunctionality, no father, child abandonment issues, it puts you in a different spectrum of not knowing where things are going. And especially when you're going with the lines of religion, being in a Catholic environment, which is pretty much forced upon you, you're pretty much going like, as a kid, well, I'm Catholic, but all this drama is happening to me. So how can I really put my faith into it when it's pretty much hypocritical? Moving forward, as I decided to join the Marine Corps, it was an escape to leave out of New York, which helped me to develop where I'm at. So during my time in the Marine Corps, I learned exactly that my childhood trauma followed me into the Marine Corps in a lot of ways, as far as unaccepting, doubting myself, second guessing. I've come to find out that I was socially disconnected with society because of all this drama. So during that course of time, I made some mistakes in the Marine Corps, but nevertheless, when we got to the tail end of it, and during the middle of my career, which I was stationed as a drill instructor in MCRD San Diego, and I became a drill instructor for 3 years. So I knew exactly what the type of mentorship was needed to be as far as the demands of leadership and understanding what things are. At the same time, wasn't following the religious aspects of Christianity because I was still Catholic. So if you understand the difference between Christianity and Catholicism is pretty much, hey, it's go in there, say your prayers, do this, do that, which Christianity brings a whole different scope. It opens a different platform for things, and it helps you engage to understand yourself from a spiritual aspect, to be able to engage to express yourself as well. During that course of time when I got out of the Marine Corps, for me, the transition, we didn't have social media back then. We didn't have cell phones back then. We didn't have people to be able to network. So for me, my transition was very tough because I found myself not having a resume, not having any type of marketable skills as we're asking, no type of mentorships, no type of escape plan as we have now, no types of sponsorship. So I pretty much used my survival skills in the Marine Corps to be able to sustain the challenges that I've had in going through the transition from military to civilian life, where people are looking at you all crazy. I have that 1,000-yard stare, and people are afraid to come and talk to me because they call me psycho for a little bit. So for me, that was pretty much. And the other thing is the adaptability to be able to reinvent yourself and have an opportunity to develop all type of relationships, because I was raised in the Marine Corps since 17. So for me, understanding the trust and credibility from people outside the Marine Corps was very skeptical. So I was pretty much an introvert. So it wasn't during the time that I was in the Marine Corps, working for UPS, that, I had some challenges. I had failed marriages. I had some serious issues, anger issues in there. And then I decided to go to the VA. And then when I went to the VA, this was like 12 years ago. About 12 years ago, I started going in there, and I went to Long Beach VA. And then back then, Long Beach VA is still a great VA, but back then the culture was veterans were out there, just standing out there when you drove up. Hey, where are you going? Where you need to go? This is where you need to go. You have an issue, we do this. So I found myself volunteering in the VA for a little bit. And during that course of time, I learned a lot about the other veterans at that time, 12 years ago. We still have World War II veterans. We had a World War I veteran that was still alive. I met him. World War II, Korean, and especially Vietnam. So when I had the opportunity to engage from different campaigns and different mindsets, they helped me to become the person who I am. They helped me, gave me a different perspective of giving what the true meaning of advocacy for the veterans and veterans' rights, and saying that this is what we do to take care of our own. And I stated to them, what can I do to give back to you guys? And I said, pay it forward. So during that course of time, LinkedIn just came in, and I just happened to be on there, and I just, Facebook was happening with LinkedIn. And back then, 20 years ago, LinkedIn was strictly professional business, nothing like it is right now, no hybrid stuff. So for me, I decided to, invent myself as an advocate for veterans and veterans' rights and PTSD. And then 20 years later, I'm still here. So that's the story. Just want to keep it simple.
I really like how you said that. It was interesting. A couple of things I'd like you to talk about. You mentioned escape several times.
Yeah.
And like you were escaping from one thing to the next thing, and then escaping from that thing to the next thing. How does that play out in your life now? I mean, have you fully escaped?
No. It's a different choice of words, because when I was very young, I only understood the dynamics of the word escape. Right? This is now, as I'm older, and mind you, Papa, back then, I was a pretty violent, notorious guy. I was scandalous. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm lucky I'm still alive. So I changed my life around. So for me now, escaping is more an alternative. And then the alternative gives me another resource to be saying, hey, these are other, instead of escaping, you're not embracing what's in front of you. So the word escape is pretty much, you're not facing your fears or your challenge. You're not taking personal accountability for yourself. You're not taking personal accountability to reflect on what the past is. You're not taking personal accountability that this is stuff that you've done. How can you be able to ask for forgiveness and then move forward and able to share your experience and say, there's no way in this world that you can't get away without being accountable. And that's what I've learned.
Yeah. Accountability in this room. Anyone else? I saw Jonathan, and then looked like he came on and then had to go. Anyone have any questions or comments for Hiram?
Well, I'd like to ask a question of Baya, since she's been in MCRD. Can I ask you a question? Your first impression dealing with, the young Marines who are going through candidates through boot camp. What was your first impression? Then what was your process of understanding, and what did you learn? And what was the turning point in your life before you started going to private practice? You're muted.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see that.
That's
Okay, so, but you could see my mouth moving. Huh? So first, I want to thank you, Hiram, for sharing with us and being with us. And it's always important to hear stories and different experiences and perspective. I will say that there's two things that were very interesting for me at MCRD. The first thing is how I had to really clarify things with the leaders, the one that were sending those young Marines to therapy, because I don't think that, I know how the system function, but therapy function differently. Therapy function with confidentiality.
Yes.
So it's kind of to strike a balance where, because it's the military, you still have to say, yes, that person came, and you have to help them understand, I cannot give you any information because it's confidential. I can just tell you that they came. What I usually don't do in any other area than in the military, because in other area, you cannot even acknowledge that the person came. So it's how you adjust a little bit and how you really have to learn, I will say, educate a little bit on the, I will say, how trust is built in therapy. It's built with the confidentiality. So you're pretty much kind of educating the leader up there and telling them, I understand that you want to know, I understand that but the only thing I'm going to tell you, because it's in the military and I have to, is that they came.
Right. So my whole thing, oops, sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. My whole thing to you would be, from a woman's perspective, because women are built differently and they have a different perception, and women are natural communicators. They multitask. They have a strong intuition that men cannot overcome. And the biggest thing is they visualize, and they're more sensitive to things because 90% or 99% of them are mothers. So pretty much they have the maternal instinct. So for you seeing that in a boot camp concept, I'm sure that as professional as you are, and seeing that, I know your heart goes on because you're doing your best to understand the dynamics of the federal government. And I'm sure that, and you can just nod, that because in the federal government, their methods don't have the right solutions to the right problems,
Well, I will say it's not necessarily because it's governmental. I think it's because any big organization, and the military is a huge organization. From my perspective, any huge organization has a tendency to be rigid and change slowly.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And so that's that part. And I think there's another thing that is very specific to the military. There's a good thing to it, and there's a challenge, like everything. There's always a double-edged sword. One of the sword is the positive of the structure, but the other side of of this double-edged sword is it can become rigid. Does that make sense? It is structure, and that's a good thing in structure, but it can become rigid. Now, how do you help some young people? And, you know, I do believe that when I work with officer and with enlisted people, there's different problem. They are not the same. Because I think a lot of people that enlist, there's a huge percentage of them that come from very dysfunctional environments, and they already have trauma.
Yeah.
And
That's-
so so the military, they can put up with things for a while, but they keep accumulating trauma. And at some point they explode, but they don't break down just because of the trauma of the military. They break down because they haven't built in the resilience that people that grew up in a healthy family have.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I take it that you have a French accent. You're from Europe, right?
Yes, I'm from France.
I thought so. So French have a different perspective of a lot of things. I can understand that, and I can really appreciate that, because when I was in France, I just want to circle back that I learned to interact with people, the Parisians out there, and more or less they have a different way of viewing life, and they have a different way of things that we as Americans really don't understand. There could be conflict, but it still plays into the fact of understanding how we view life, you know, from a military, government, spirituality, and from a clinical standpoint, because the lifestyle there is totally different. So when you come to the United States, you have your different viewpoints from a European standpoint that kind of clashes, but at the same time, you're doing your best to reciprocate and give your perception, because a lot of Americans, and even in the American government, as I can honestly say, that we kind of are standoffish from seeing different point of views, unless depending on the person who delivers the message. You know?
So to respond to that, I don't believe in that it's necessary clashes.
Okay.
I do believe that I'm from France, you're from there. Some people are from the military, some people from a different family. I do believe that we are all travelers.
Correct.
And to be a sensitive traveler, you need to adjust to other people. So a sensitive traveler is someone that understands that I might speak a different language, but I'm going to adjust and learn some of your language to understand you better. I might do different thing differently in my place, but I'm going to, out of respect of you, to adjust to your way of doing things because I'm in your environment.
Correct.
And I do believe that this is so important. It's not just about French or American or whatever. It's about human being today. Today, the biggest issue is that people don't know and don't learn to be sensitive travelers. It's my way or the highway. And if you disagree with me, you're a hater. But the reality is in life, we're all different.
Mm-hmm.
And the key is really learning to be a sensitive traveler, to learn to adjust. I didn't say when I say adjust, I'm not saying compromising your core values.
Right.
I'm saying adjusting to changing circumstances.
I agree with you. As flexibility is most important. That's why it's important to have personal growth, to be able to engage with people from a different walk of life, to be able to understand that there are people who have different viewpoints that can be more higher learning than you, that can also stimulate, and then I can actually embrace it, where other people can be ignorant about it and they won't accept it because they choose that. That's a choice. But as you say, we're all travelers, and we need to understand that we are together. And at the end of the day, we leave this world the same way we come in, alone. So we need to be able to give back to society, not only from a purpose-driven life within yourself, but something in a spirituality that would give people a notion that you're caring and knowing that you're paying back to society to a point that it's rewarding at the end. So I want to thank you.
Okay, so Sarah has her hand up. Before we go, I like the idea of the pilgrimage. My citizenship is in heaven by Christ. And if I remember that I'm just a traveler, I many times, and when I'm in another country, I have to be mindful of the cultures of that country. And it doesn't take long to realize that I'm not a citizen when I see what people have that's important to them on this side, and how they operate. I had a thing yesterday, we'll talk about maybe in another day, a story about how we're we don't know the people in front of us. We're more strangers than we are familiars, even to the most familiar people to us. And I think getting to know each other is very powerful, because letting people know me, that's scary. I mean, know the insides of me. In recovery in NA and AA, we have a saying, you're only as sick as your secrets. And so when we start to be real and genuine, we steal the devil's power. He has no more power, because then we've already stole his thunder. He can't accuse us. And I really like that. Sarah, you got something? Before you go, Jonathan is on. Jonathan, could you introduce yourself just to take a couple of minutes so Hiram and the rest of us get to know you a little bit? I don't know if you can unmute, Jonathan. There you are.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Jonathan Castillo here, Master Sergeant. I'd like to say
That's my nephew.
hello to my uncle, Hiram Figueroa there.
Yeah.
First and foremost, hey, and thank you for the invite. Sergeant Castillo here again, like I said earlier, busy, super busy day today. Active duty service member right now, currently stationed in Fort Hood. I just graduated the Sergeant Major's Academy, class 72, and just getting my feet wet back here on Fort Hood again, trying to help out the young service members here on the installation and trying to bridge the gap with the VA, kind of something what Marco was talking about earlier. So that's me in a quick nutshell, and I enjoy listening to the conversation and the dialogue. It's been extremely professional, and I'm glad to be part of the team and glad to be part of this Zoom today.
Yeah. So
Again, hey,
the younger ones, I mean, we see in scripture all the time, the elder and the older having to come alongside and kind of instructing things beyond just the task of how to live, so I really appreciate that. Sarah, we'll go to you for a second here.
Oh, Jonathan, I had no idea you were Hiram's nephew. It's good to
He's my
have you.
nephew.
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't want to disclose too much information as we were, cross talking. And I was actually helping a young veteran earlier at the VA, right? I know I have a busy day, but there was a young homeless veteran that I ran into, so I wanted to pick him up. He was living under the streets of in Austin, right? So as I was doing that, I was looking at my phone and I seen that my uncle was doing this today, and I saw that he shared it with y'all's organization. I said, what a perfect time to come on board and speak about it, that we do have some things going on as service members, and we owe it to our young service members to take care of them, because this young service member took care of me when I was in. But yes, he's my uncle. I'm sorry, and I don't want to steal the show. It's not about me.
No,
it's
no,
about
no.
my uncle today. And
So
But
I gotta disclose this, okay? Jonathan, I was there when he was born. So, that was my first time. Jonathan has something similar like I have in upbringing, but I look at him today, never thought that he was going to be a command sergeant major, never thought that he was going to be in the United States Army, and I'm very proud of him. So just wanted to share that.
Well, and this is another example of, we don't know who's in front of us. And so it's a good reason not to gossip, because you don't know if they're related to the person you're gossiping about. So, if I ever need, you just, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have heard somebody say something about somebody to someone, and they had no idea that that person had a relationship with the person they were back. So my Sunday school poem, Sarah's heard this before. I learned this in Sunday school, is my words today, your words today make them sweet, for they tomorrow you may eat. So be sure and
I love that.
Yeah, your words today make them sweet, for they tomorrow you may eat. Sarah, you had some questions or comments for Hiram?
Yeah, I just, again, I love hearing about your past. I mean, just what you've come through. I'm sorry that things were hard, of course.
Yeah.
But I just love who you are now, like just through your posts, through, the other conversation that we had together. And, and I think about everything you've gone through, how easy too it would be to become hopeless. And yet you have obviously embraced God. I love the posts that, you pray on LinkedIn, you share scriptures, you share hope. Like, how did that happen?
It's you come to a point in your life that destination is coming close to an end, right? So you got to be able to say, what am I doing on here to give back? Because we don't know what's going to happen at the end of my lifespan. So I know I made some mistakes. I've taken accountability, right? I've asked for forgiveness. Some has been good, some has been bad, but I made it a point to ask for forgiveness. I made some stupid, immature decisions as a kid, making bad business decisions based on emotion. But getting back to what I'm doing today is just something that I feel that was a need for that, because my grandmother back in the day, when God rest in peace, she's a very spiritualist woman from the island of Puerto Rico. She kind of taught that, and I decided to get back. And the biggest thing that I can honestly say that I embraced it, that coming back from New Jersey to visit my mom, who's 89 years old, and I see her and we have longevity, I decided to more or less keep things very simple. I mean, I have a lot of adversity right now going on, but as we all stated, I have to believe in something, because without that belief and faith, I can't overcome it. So, I believe in giving back. That's all I can tell you. I keep it very simple, So I don't walk around with a Bible. I just put the actions. I just say, here you go. This is what I got. Let it take a life of its own and leave on there. That's it. That's all I can say.
Thanks, Hiram. You're definitely sending some great messages.
Hiram, do you have a particular story about your praying, how it was then, how it's changed to now, and maybe something really surprising from your prayer?
I have to disclose, as an altar boy growing up in Brooklyn, New York, you go over there, you've seen the mafia stories, movies of the altar boys going there. I'll tell you, we used to pray, but before we prayed, and I was a kid, took the wine, we used to drink, got the munchies, ate the wafers, and we'd be drunk serving mass. And then all of a sudden the nuns would be seeing us and we were all lit and everything else, but we'd be asking the prayer. So getting back to the original prayer, that prayer was pretty much pre-constructed, right? It was mandated. It wasn't out of feeling, it was out of obligation. So for me, obligation from Catholicism was pretty much say 10 Hail Marys, 15 Our Fathers, and call it a day. That's how it used to be. Now, moving forward, when you lose direction from Christianity or from your religion and not have focus, and you distance yourself and you think you can do things by yourself, you'd find that in life, you can't do everything by yourself. The biggest thing. And the other thing is that you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And the other thing is that success comes in many parts, in many ways, that allow people to be able to, help you understand where things are at and ask for forgiveness as well. Now, moving forward, when we're talking about prayer, I genuinely put my heart and soul into it, because I have that spiritual feeling that I'm asking for prayer. I'm asking for guidance versus obligation. Whether they're going to hear it or not, whether God upstairs is going to hear it or not, I think that the more passionate I become in prayer, it allows me to be a little bit more peaceful, and hopefully things will turn out right. So there's been times that, things have turned out right, but I ask for forgiveness every day, because we don't know when it's time for us to leave, So that's why I ask you that.
That's great. Maybe someday I'll tell the story about how my prayers have changed over the last, I guess the last year. But I so believe in prayer. I just so believe in prayer. especially because the Lord's Prayer. I mean, that's very, very Catholic, right?
Mhm.
The Lord's Prayer is very Catholic, and it can be very
Repetitive.
scripted, just say it, be gone. But when I've using it as a guide is, Lord, deliver us from evil, and that evil comes from the evil one, and that is our enemy. He is our enemy. I mean, and so deliver us from evil. There is so much, and I'm not good enough to deliver us from evil, and I don't always recognize evil. I mean, I'm sure in your life you've come across something that you've determined later that was evil. That was pure evil. So, I mean, this idea of praying that Sarah brings up, I mean, wouldn't it? So, how does that align your mission today and your faith in Christ? I mean, through that, I mean, that alignment is really, to me, to all of us, very important, very personal, but yet very common. Faith in Christ is the great equalizer. Everybody gets in the same way, and everybody gets in through the same Christ. I mean, you couldn't be more diverse, and I mean, everybody gets in the same way. I mean, you talk about diversity, acceptance, and inclusion. In my mind, that is absolute diversity, acceptance, and inclusion. So what do you think?
Papa, this is what I could share with you. I'll start with this. With Baya's concept of dysfunctionality that comes in the Marine Corps, that's like, it starts my story. So for me, as we speak today, right, I have challenges, work-related issues. I've had some serious issues. This hasn't been the best year of my life, but the biggest thing that has helped me understand that, from a psychological aspect of getting therapy, to be able to speak to someone from a clinical standpoint that can give me some clinical advice, to be able to utilize the resources to help me identify the crisis that I have inside me. The other thing is the spiritual aspect of it, to understand that you can't do this on your own, and sometimes you're gonna have to bow down to the crisis and ask for forgiveness. And then at the same time, is my responsibility for myself that I have to uphold, because with so many things that Sarah says, a lot of hopeless people, hopeless veterans, you lose hope. I can't. I'm responsible for my family. I'm responsible for my 2 little dogs. I can tell you a story. Where's he at? Come here, Ted. Come here, bro. Give me a second. Shut up. This dude right here, I got him when he was a baby. Spent $2,000 saving him. Over there. So that's what I have. You got to forgive me. I just had this treatment just now. I didn't expect a breakthrough, but
It's okay.
but needless to say, he was my first pet, a service dog. Made him a service dog in the VA. And I say about a week ago, he was sick. So I come to find out, regardless of what was going on, I had to save his life. So I did what I had to do. That gives me a purpose. So getting back to what Sarah was saying, the opportunity of a choice to be hopeless, hopeful. It's the pure direction of where you want to go in your life. You know? So I choose to continue to embrace what's going on and pray for and hope for the best. And I say hope for the best in a way that, in spite of the adversity that's gone on, I have to be strong, regardless, and express my vulnerability as well. So I hope I answer that question for you.
Yeah.
A friend of mine wrote her master's thesis in psychology. She had a master's in, I think it was social work, and she wrote her master's thesis on hope. Essentially, she said you can go 40 days fasting without eating. You can go 15, 20 days without drinking anything. The miracle of Christ fasting and for that 40 days was at the end of his fast, when he's weak, he didn't break fast. He did battle with the devil. I mean, literally, he did warfare with Satan in all of those temptations. And then at the end of that, she said, you can go all that time without food and water, but you can't go a day without hope.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lose hope, boy, that's horrible.
Well, I agree with you. That's why it's important that when you touch on that subject, there's so many dynamics that cause the triggers to be able to create emotions, right? And I stated to you what's important. You living your life as far as to be financially successful, or do you look around and see what's important? So my family's important. You know, my little fur babies are important. You do what you need to do to be able to fulfill what you can give, because you have the capability of giving. And I think the biggest thing, and I know in today's society, and Bada can understand, coming from a dysfunctional family or dysfunctionality, when you're looking for types of therapy, you lose the concept of giving because you're too focused on being wounded and you don't understand how to heal yourself. So you don't ask for help. You're too prideful. So meanwhile, when you're not asking for help, you're manifesting all the hurt and everything. Everything becomes passive aggressive. It explodes, and you have no control because you don't have the resources or the support to be able to understand the issues or diagnose the problems and accept. And once the diagnosis of the problems are out there, that you can look at it and embrace it and say it's okay to be broken. You're fine. You just got to learn how to cope with it. And I think that's the biggest misconception from a clinical standpoint and from a spiritual standpoint. You know?
Thank you, Hiram. I think, Maya, you had something you were interested in talking about.
I was thinking about different things. First, I will remember that I have some scripture usually that helped me a lot. And I think there's nothing that can bring you as much hope as the word. And what I like is some scripture like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yep.
I like also that we don't have just hope, is we have Christ in us. That is the hope of glory, not just the hope of glory. Yeah. And then we also have a strength that is very unique, is the joy of the Lord is my strength. So what I would say is that there's a part where I think all of these are true. And the challenge is really to trust. And I think usually the biggest challenge when you've experienced abuse as a kid is to learn to trust.
Absolutely.
And to learn to trust that when God says, you are mine, I have chosen you, I call you by name. It's God is telling you, even if your mom abandoned you, I will never abandon you. So there's a lot of scripture that are really a kind of reparenting from God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they are very healing when you come from a place of abusive environment or neglectful environment, because the trust the trust has been broken very young. And so it's really, you have to be very intentional to trust.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And that's why when I noticed my nephew, Jonathan, he has, I was there when he was born. I've seen him during the time he raised, and we've, he's become a great man. And I've seen that, and it gets me, it's an emotional standpoint, because I could see the man who he came to be because of all the adversities and everything else. And then now he's coming in here, and you guys get to meet him. And then Papa's asking me all these questions. That it brings a circle of emotions that you have to address it for transparency standpoint, because we all have issues. And when we say hope, Papa, is more or less right. Hope is everything else, but there's different types of scriptures that reinforces the capabilities of faith to take away the adversity of hope. Because if you understand the difference of hope, people don't understand. They're just hoping for something, but they're not taking action, right? So faith without works is dead, correct? Right. So if you don't put the faith in, there's no works in it, it's dead. So that's why I can totally understand what you're saying.
Well, Hiram, I thank you for your story. A final comment: when these last couple of weeks, there have been some nights that I've been awakened and couldn't sleep. So I would go into another room and lay down and turn on, I have the U version Bible application. Yeah. And I'm a King James guy because of the poetry. I turn on the Psalms and just let it go, because I figure, I really believe that, and then I'll pray along with as I'm listening to them. And I find that the devil would rather me be sleeping than listening to Psalms and praying. So it's just, when you said you're spending time praying, that has become probably my biggest oasis, is listening to scripture and praying at the same time. So Hiram, I thank you. If you got a final word, and then I'm going to ask somebody to kind of close us up here in prayer for those that have definitely put their safety subordinate to that of others to defend this country, and our law enforcement and first responders, that if safety were first, they wouldn't do that job. They definitely subordinate their own safety. I've been saying to people now, remember, safety third. So because, it really is. I mean, there's ways to be safer, and don't be stupid. But if it were safety first every time, we wouldn't have gotten on the car and driven to work today. Yeah. So Hiram, a final word, and then I'm going to ask Maya if she might dismiss us and close us out in prayer.
So the final word, as I shared with Sarah today, I just recently came back from the hospital. I had my SGB shot for PTSD. I was expecting to have a breakthrough. I didn't expect it to have it this fast. So that's why I got emotional. So, those type of treatments help. I think collaboration is the biggest thing. And then social media unity is the other thing, because social media is a positive way to help engage and meet people, to understand. I think fellowship is the last thing that we need to continue, because without fellowship, we'll be lost. So,
and Hiram, it's been an absolute pleasure and really privileged to listen to your story, your journey, the fact that you're willing to be open and transparent and have those breaks in front of us. I mean, that's real. You don't get any realer than that. Sarah, just a second, and then we'll let Maya pray us out of here. You got anything?
I just appreciate you. Thank you for coming on.
Not a problem. Anytime. We'll be doing more of this. Trust me. I'll be doing my podcast broadcasts. It's going to take it once. With all this adversity crap that's going on, it's not going to stop. So I appreciate you as well. Thank you.
All right, Maya, get us on the journey with prayer.
Oh God, I just want to thank you for Hiram and his openness and his vulnerability with us. It just touched my heart to see how he was willing to be here and help letting us hold this time and all those emotions with him. God, I thank you for the way you protected him all along, even in difficult background and difficult childhood, and brought him to the military, use his heart to serve and to protect others. And God, I want to pray for him, and I want to pray for Aaron, and I want to pray for Ron and all those who have protected us or are protecting us today, whether they are veterans or active duty. God, I just pray for your protection. I pray for your strengthening. I pray for your healing for the one that need healing. I pray for the community to come around them, to give them all the support that they need. I know times are different, but we know that you are the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and that you hold all the worlds in your hands. And we don't have to fear because we are in your hand. You say to us, fear not, because I am with you. And so I pray that for all the veterans, all the active duty, and also every other human being, and in those groups also, that we can know that we're in your hands. And so we're in a very loving, expert hands. And thank you for your love. And I pray this in Jesus' name, amen.
Wow, thank you for closing us out there. I will see you all here, there, or in the air. And I certainly love you, and there is nothing you can do about it. So have a nice week.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, guys.
Thanks,
you.
Papa Ron.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Hiram.